Hello everybody and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking seller concessions. It is a pretty popular term that's being thrown around right now in the real estate market. And so we're going to do a dive into it. I will be discussing a couple different situations to shed some light on how you can use seller concessions. And we'll be going over some positives and negatives. So if that's something that you think might interest you, definitely stick around. All right, so let's get into it. What are seller concessions? Seller concessions are funds given from the seller to the buyer to help with expenses in a real estate transaction. This could be closing costs, or another very popular one right now is an interest rate buy down. But you can use it for many different things in a real estate transaction, which I'm going to get into more of. All right, so now that you know what seller concessions are, why don't we dive a little bit more into how they can be used. So I have a situation from last week where I was out with my clients. They're a little bit older. We are doing a VA home loan, and they're looking under 300K. So in this market, we know, anything that pops up in that 300K range or under is gonna get quite a bit of attention just because our inventory is not great in that price range. And so we found a great home. Clients wanted to make an offer. With the market being the way it is, I knew we're probably gonna have some competition. So we wanted to make sure we gave the sellers what they wanted. The list price of the property was $280,000. However, my client needs about $7,000 in closing costs to close on this transaction. So one of the ways we went about getting that money is we actually offered $7,000 over the list price. So we offered the sellers $287,000. The reason we did this is, one, it will get my clients the closing costs. Two, the seller is still going to net the $280 list price that they want. And three, it should be relatively competitive with other offers if they happen to come in. Now we know after the fact, we did end up having two other offers. One was an FHA, I believe it was at list price. And then we had a cash offer that came in a little bit under list price. And we ended up getting our offer accepted. So there are ways to go about it where seller concessions won't necessarily impact you in a negative way when it comes to making an offer like that. So as a positive, my client gets his closing costs covered. He essentially rolled the closing costs into his loan. Seller still nets what they wanted. It's a win-win. However, there is a negative side to that situation that I just outlined. And that is, we took the list price of what the seller and listing agent thought the home would sell for, $280,000. We increased that by $7,000. Now, since my client is a veteran and he is using a VA home loan, they are going to request an appraisal, which means this home now has to appraise $7,000 more than the seller and listing agent had anticipated. In this scenario, $7K is on a big jump. So me and the listing agent are pretty confident, especially after looking at comps in the area. The home should definitely appraise for $287,000. I don't even think $290,000 is a stretch. But if you were asking for $15,000 or $20,000 in seller concessions, which is not unreasonable depending on the situation, that's where you could run into appraisal issues. And so you have to be careful of that. You have to be mindful to make sure, because that could cause issues down the road in the closing process of the transaction. Now we're going to walk through the second situation. Clients are a little bit younger, also using VA home loan, but they're looking at the new construction route. Now, a lot of the builders in the valley are offering pretty substantial seller closing costs, $25,000 up to $45,000, depending on the price of the home. Well, so we got under contract. We were able to get $40,000 in seller concessions from the builder. Now, you will find in a lot of contracts that it will state in there, any unused portion of those seller concessions will be refunded to the seller. So you want to make sure as you're going through the buying process that buyers, you're talking to your lenders and making sure that you are applying those funds, or that you're using all of those funds as much as possible. Now, with like most conventional loans, the VA loan has a limit on how much seller concessions can be used towards buyers' closing costs. With the VA home loan, it's going to be 4%. So my clients purchase or are under contract on a new construction home at 505. So 4% of that, you're roughly looking at about $20,000. Now I said we had gotten 40. So how do we use that other 40? Well, in new construction, it benefits you to have a higher amount of seller concessions, because you can apply those concessions to finishes like window blinds, landscaping, fencing, stuff like that, which does not accumulate towards your 4% of closing costs. So my clients have $20,000 going towards landscaping, fencing, and some other things, and then we have $20,000 left over to work with to buy down their interest rate and to pay for their closing cost. So most of the funds are going to be used. A lot of times you can pay additional HOA fees or next year's HOA fees. There's a lot of ways to get creative with those closing costs or those seller concessions. So you want to make sure, like I said, that you're speaking with your lender and really taking advantage of all that. So we've talked about the positives. Now, obviously for the builder in this situation, they're out $40K, but it's a buying incentive. And this builder is selling a lot of homes in the valley, and it's because their incentives are so great. So there's definitely some positives and negatives. We've talked primarily about the buyer side of closing costs. Let's talk about the seller side. Sellers, there are benefits to offering concessions to buyers, and a lot of times you'll see it in forms of like a flooring allowance. So let's say a house has 5 dogs, the flooring, the carpets tore up, smells like dog. It's going to need to be replaced when the new homeowners take ownership. Well, the seller, knowing that, can go in, and instead of having to rip out the carpet and do all the work themselves, they can just give the funds to whoever gives them an acceptable offer on the home, and then that buyer can come in and make their own decisions on whether or not they want to replace the carpet with more carpet. Maybe they want to match the flooring that's throughout the rest of the home. Saves the seller the headache of having to do it themselves or hire it out and then delay your listing. There's a lot of positives for sellers, especially in markets like this where homes are sitting on the market for 40, 50, 60 days. You're not getting a ton of showings. It could definitely add some value to your listing. So definitely keep it in mind. In conclusion, guys, seller concessions is a great real estate tool, especially in today's market. It can be a benefit for both buyers and sellers if used properly. Like I explained earlier or throughout the video, there are benefits, there are some negatives to keep your eye out for. So sellers are in the market, you're hearing that term thrown around. Hopefully this video has helped clarify some of that for you and giving you a few ideas on how to use seller concessions to make your offer more appealing to the seller. That's what this is here for. If you guys do have any more questions, because this is a very brief touch on a very broad topic, but if you guys do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave my contact info below. Also, I'm going to leave a seller's guide down below as well. It's totally free. When you click on the link, it'll take you to a site. You'll fill out your info. It'll email it over to you so you have it in your inbox. But yeah, that's today's video. And if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. If you got any benefit out of this video, please share it, like, subscribe. That definitely helps. But yeah, otherwise, have a great day and happy house hunting.